We don't build things in the US anymore, at least not like we used to. Here's a graph of the percentage of Americans working in manufacturing over the past few decades. And as you can see, it went from over 25% in the 1970s down to less than 10% today. This is a huge problem for both our economy and our global competitiveness. And it's led us to a manufacturing environment in this country that's broken. In many cases, we simply cannot build the things that we used to. But in this video, we're not just talking about problems, we're also talking about solutions, and about one company in particular who is showing us how things can be different. So stick around. We are facing an existential crisis in the US over manufacturing. In the 1950s, we manufactured 60% of the world's goods, despite having only 5% of the world's population. Now that was never going to last forever. Countries in Europe and Asia had been destroyed and they hadn't yet rebuilt their economies following World War II. Now we once had manufacturing dominance, but today our economy has completely shifted and we've forfeited our place in the world as the dominant manufacturer, and it's getting worse every day. Now in economics, there's a term called specialization. It's where a given country will focus on industries where they have a comparative advantage. Perhaps that advantage is in skilled labor or access to materials. In Saudi Arabia, they produce oil and sell it. In South America, they produce coffee and bananas. In Ireland, it's cheese and butter. These comparative advantages work to create efficiencies. And ultimately, a country who specializes in certain things will generally be able to produce a better product at a cheaper price. Specialization is generally thought of as a good thing. Not every country has to produce everything or can produce everything for that matter, and if they try to, it can become very inefficient. Through trade, we're able to take advantage of the efficiencies brought on by specialization, and anyone can get what they want at a higher quality and a cheaper price than they would otherwise. In theory, that is. The problem that we have in the US today is that we've outsourced so much of our manufacturing that there is very little that we specialize in today. Now we still have some industries, we build some cars and planes and tractors and engines and things like that, but what US companies produce usually is not seen as the best in the world. Boeing, for example, has got its problems. General Motors and Ford cars are a step below Honda and Toyota. Tesla's electric vehicles are being challenged head-on by Chinese electric vehicle makers who are able to manufacture better cars at cheaper prices. Then if we look at smaller items, things like appliances, electronics, and tools, most of that stuff is manufactured overseas and very little of it is manufactured in the US. Now in some ways, outsourcing manufacturing isn't really a problem. It allows us to specialize in other things. But we've outsourced so much of it that it's actually putting us at strategic risk. We in the US do have a superpower though, a comparative advantage over other countries, something that exists in the US and has always existed here that is key to unlocking our potential, and that is entrepreneurship. We innovate, we design new products, we build new businesses, we manifest destiny. The problem that we have today though is that when an entrepreneur in the US has an idea, designs it, and then needs to build a prototype or get parts made, where do they go? Well, they go to China, and Chinese firms are happy to help them take their design process from a digital file all the way through to a physical item. But that takes time, and the distance adds to that. There are fabricators in the US that can do it, but they often are uninterested in low volume work, or their processes are too cumbersome, or they're really expensive, or all of the above. To put it plainly, the fabrication industry in the US is broken. Most of the fabrication companies are operated on old business models, and many are closing down as their owners are retiring. This makes it hard for people to get parts in the US, and it makes it hard for entrepreneurs to bring their ideas to life. That is changing though. There is a company in the US called Oshcut, and I recently went to their manufacturing plant to see how they operate and meet with their CEO. They're changing the industry and have created a business model that can accommodate manufacturers and entrepreneurs by delivering high quality parts made to order in as little as a day from submission to quote to build in some cases. So this is Caleb Chamberlain, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Oshcut. Now he's an engineer by trade, and he took me on a tour of their facility, and he also sat down with me to answer some of my questions about their company. And I have to say that I was overall really impressed. Now the whole reason that they started this company was because he and his brother were trying to build a project and found it was nearly impossible to get the parts that they needed.
What just really stuck to us when we were trying to build it was, man, this is such a hard experience, just trying to buy a part. So you could go into CAD and design something up, and then you would spend weeks trying to find a shop that would make it for you. And even if you already had a relationship with another shop, you'd send them the part and they would say, okay, yeah, that's great, it'll be 3 weeks. And that's assuming they get back to you. Sometimes you'd wait days to a week just for a price. So we would make a design and it might take a couple days, and then you're waiting a month for parts. And we thought, there's gotta be a better way to do this. And one day I texted Jacob and said, hey, we should just buy a laser. I had no idea at the time that buying a laser was like $1 million proposition.
Yeah,
For sure. Very expensive.
This was a huge problem, and it led him to taking out a loan on his house so that he could buy a huge laser and start cutting parts for himself. And that's where the business began. Today, Oshcut is a full-service fabricator that can take on nearly any project that you've got. They can cut steel, aluminum, or stainless steel sheets up to 1 inch thick. They can bend up to 3/4 inch plate. They can also cut and bend tubes. They can insert hardware, weld parts, and do powder coating, among many other things. Now, there are a lot of fabricators that can also do all those things, but what makes Oshcut unique is that their business model allows for them to handle nearly any job for any customer, big or small. And their secret is their software. The way that it works is that a customer goes to their website where they can upload a model of their project. It can be a flat pattern or a 3D model, and they support a number of different file types. From there, the Oshcut software will analyze the part and tell you if they can build it or if there are problems that need to be fixed. At most other fabricators, you would have to talk with a sales engineer, and then you have to go back and forth with them, and that can take weeks. At Oshcut, they're able to handle it right away and help anyone through the process, whether you have tons of experience and work for a big company, or if you're a guy just trying to build something in your garage. So they're able to get their customers instant price quotes, and they can start working on your order right away, meaning that if you like what you see, you can go from that file to the quote to having a part in your hands the same day if you're close by, or the next day if it needs to be shipped. You don't need to go back and forth for weeks on the design. You don't need to wait for the part to come in on a slow boat from China, but you can have it in your hands in a short amount of time. That can revolutionize the way that people innovate and do business. So let me ask, what do you think about Oshcut? Do you have projects where you could use the types of parts that Oshcut can make? Or have you tried to have parts made at other fabricators in the past and run into issues? Please leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. Now, the other key to Oshcut's business model and to their success is how flexible they are.
The challenge with an on-demand shop like ours is that you always have to have enough capacity to deal with variability. So your demand jumps up and down daily. If you want to be able to turn stuff around fast, you need enough capacity to hit the peaks. But that means always having excess capacity. But there's this kind of magical property of the statistics of random arrivals says that the higher your capacity and the higher the demand, the less excess capacity you need to ship fast. And so we're just aiming to pull in and aggregate as much volume as we can because counterintuitively, the busier you are as an on-demand shop, the faster you can ship.
So they're focused on volume and efficiency. And their software not only helps with orders, but also helps with their workflow tracking and inventory.
So what we quickly discovered is that quoting a job is actually kind of the easy part. Manufacturing the parts is hard. Yeah. So we went through and we just solved our own pain by writing software to fix it and make it better. This particular business model just would be impossible without that kind of active software development in-house. So it's created a kind of new kind of a company where not only are we a manufacturer, but we're a software company, and we marry the two to create a novel experience for customers.
This is the kind of business model and innovation which is going to allow us to compete with China. We can't do business the way that we've always done it. We need to be faster and more efficient, and that's what Oshcut is doing. Now, one of the main reasons that China was such an attractive target for outsourcing in the past was labor costs. And while labor costs in China have actually gone up quite a bit recently, the median income in China is still around $5,000 a year, which of course is much lower than the median income in the US. If we're trying to compete strictly on labor costs, then we're never going to win, which is why automation and efficiency are so important. But here's the interesting thing about Oshcut. Because they're able to gain efficiencies in their operations and keep their volume high and their costs low, they're still able to pay well. Here's what Caleb said about that.
We're lucky enough to have a model that lets us pay really well. Our attitude on that is, hey, if you want high performing, great adults who are going to stick around and do a good job, you have to pay a living wage. You have to pay enough for people to live. And if you don't, then there's going to be a lot of turnover, and that's just the way it is. But in some cases, we pay double the median. And it doesn't matter what job you're doing, whether we have you packing boxes or whether you're running a press break, you're always going to be making at least that living wage. We have this guaranteed pay scale that gets people there. And then simultaneously, we hire for culture fit instead of experience. And then we train in-house 100%. But we don't seek out people who have a decade of experience running press breaks or a decade of experience running lasers, for example.
Right.
We just build all the material in-house, and we send people out for training as well, just to kind of keep the experience and capability topped off.
So they have a great workforce. They're able to pay well and retain and train their workers while also maintaining their competitive prices. Again, this is the way that we need to compete. The last key to their success is quality. The best software in the world will not help you gain or retain customers if your quality is poor. The Oshcut team is ISO certified and they're constantly focused on quality.
But we have our all hands stand up here every week where everyone in the entire company is here. We talk about every single quality miss for the week. We talk about customer feedback as well. We collect regular Net Promoter Score reviews from our customers, Google reviews, and online feedback, emails. All of that, positive and negative, comes here, and everybody in the company sees it. So all of that helps us close the loop on outcomes and impact. Our people understand where the challenges are and how we can do better. And we've been able to build a reputation for quality in our space, and that's one of the things that our customers really prefer about us is we have exceptional quality.
All right, so here's the cool thing about Oshcut. If you have a project that you're working on and you need parts, you can get them from Oshcut. It doesn't matter if you're just a guy like me in your garage. In fact, in working with Oshcut, I've got a deal where you can get 50% off your first order up to $200. Feel free to click on the QR code on the screen, or you can follow the link in the description. It's really amazing what they're doing, and they're really democratizing the fabrication process for anyone. So definitely check them out. Also, please leave me a comment and let me know if you're interested in seeing the full interview with Oshcut CEO Caleb Chamberlain. We talked about a lot of different things, including how his industry is changing and their plans for the future. If there's enough interest, I'll be sure to post that. As always, thanks for watching. Please be sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.